Steven Spielberg has spent nearly 50 years asking the same question. What happens when something impossible arrives? In E.T., it was friendship. In Close Encounters, it was obsession. In Jurassic Park, it was scientific hubris. And now, in Disclosure Day, Spielberg asks perhaps the most frightening version of this question. What happens when humanity finally gets proof? Hello, today I sat down and watched Disclosure Day on the big screen, and I cannot stop thinking about it. To be fair, today is the release day. However, I felt compelled to discuss this film, just like how Elliot was compelled to help E.T. go home. Now, I will say, of course, there will be spoilers, so do not watch if you don't want anything spoiled. Steven Spielberg spent years perfecting suspense, and I'm about to ruin that within the next 30 seconds. And unlike him, I'm showing the shark straight away. Despite its title, Disclosure Day is not really a film about disclosure. It is not even particularly interested in aliens. Yes, spoiler alert, there's aliens in a Spielberg film. Like so much of his work, Disclosure Day is ultimately concerned with the fragile relationship between wonder and belief. The extraterrestrials merely become the vessel or passage through which that question is explored. On the surface, the film resembles a synthesis of Spielberg's greatest fascinations: childhood, government secrecy, suburban anxiety, and visitors from beyond the stars. This film feels like a spiritual descendant of Close Encounters of the Third Kind and E.T., albeit filtered through a far more cynical cultural moment. The central conflict appears straightforward. Humanity stands on the precipice of learning that extraterrestrial life exists, and that this fact has been concealed for decades. However, the film quickly reveals that the existence of aliens is not the true revelation. No, in fact, the revelation is what certainty does to people. Throughout history, humanity has been defined by uncertainty. We wonder whether we are alone. We wonder what happens after death, and we wonder whether God exists. We wonder whether the universe has a purpose. These questions are frightening, but they're also strangely comforting because they allow space for belief. The unknown becomes a canvas onto which we project meaning. Disclosure Day asks what happens when that canvas is removed. The idea is explored most effectively through Jane, played by Eve Hewson, who emerges as perhaps the film's most fascinating character. As a former novitiate, Jane initially appears positioned to represent organized religion's resistance to disclosure. But Jane is not afraid that aliens will disprove God. In fact, the film repeatedly suggests that extraterrestrial life and religious belief are not mutually exclusive. Rather, Jane fears something more profound. She fears that proof of a higher intelligence would eliminate the very conditions that make faith meaningful. Faith depends upon absence. It depends on uncertainty. It requires individuals to believe, despite the impossibility of confirmation. The arrival of a demonstrably superior extraterrestrial civilization would fundamentally alter that relationship. What Jane understands is that human beings do not merely worship because they believe something is true. They worship because belief provides comfort. Religion offers structure in the face of chaos. It transforms a universe that appears indifferent into one that feels intentional. If extraterrestrials arrived possessing knowledge beyond human comprehension, capable of feats that resemble miracles, many people would inevitably begin treating them as gods. The danger is not the destruction of religion, but rather its replacement. Humanity would exchange faith for observation. Instead of believing in something unseen, people would orient their lives around something physically present. In doing so, they might lose the very thing religion was designed to provide: the ability to live alongside uncertainty. Now, thinking about all of this and writing this out, this strongly reminded me of Albert Camus and his philosophy of absurdism. Camus argued that human existence is defined by a tension between our desperate search for meaning and the universe's refusal to provide definitive answers. Religion, in many ways, serves as one response to this dilemma. It offers coherence where none is evident, and it softens the terror of an indifferent cosmos. Now, Disclosure Day imagines a world in which the absurd suddenly answers back. The silence ends and humanity finally receives confirmation that it is not alone. Yet rather than resolving the absurd condition, this revelation intensifies it. The extraterrestrials do not explain existence, but rather expand its scale. Humanity learns that it is part of something larger, but that larger reality remains equally mysterious. In this sense, the film suggests that certainty itself may be an illusion. Every answer simply creates a larger question. Thinking about it, perhaps this is why Spielberg returns once again to childhood. Daniel, played by the beautiful Josh O'Connor, and Emily Blunt's amazing character Margaret, their forgotten memories are among the film's most intriguing elements. Their childhood encounter with extraterrestrials is deliberately ambiguous, and the film wisely refuses to offer a complete explanation. What matters is not what happened, but what the memory represents. Childhood is the period in which every experience feels supernatural. The world is incomprehensibly vast. Adults possess secret knowledge, the night sky appears infinite. Questions emerge faster than answers. There is something profoundly extraterrestrial about childhood itself. Both are characterized by mystery, possibility, and wonder. When Hugo, played by the absolutely wonderful Coleman Domingo, helps Danny and Margaret recover their memories, the scene feels less like an alien revelation and more like an act of remembering what it means to be curious. As adults, they have become constrained by certainty. Their identities have been hardened and their understanding of reality has become fixed. The recovered memory fractures that certainty. Suddenly, the universe becomes strange again. Perhaps Spielberg is suggesting that extraterrestrials function as a metaphor for the childlike capacity to remain astonished. The tragedy of adulthood is not that we lose our innocence, but that we lose the ability to encounter the unknown without immediately attempting to explain it away. This idea becomes even more interesting through Margaret's extraordinary abilities. Her power to appear differently to different people initially feels disconnected from the film's central concerns, yet it gradually reveals itself as one of the most significant thematic devices. Margaret possesses the ability to read minds and to form the shape of someone closest to individuals. Though she does not just merely perform this, she actually understands emotional needs. She becomes a reflection of what another person has lost, desires, fears, or longs for. Throughout the film, characters struggle to communicate honestly. Governments conceal information, corporates manipulate the truth, and religion wrestles with doubt. Families fail to understand one another. Everyone exists behind barriers, but Margaret temporarily dissolves those. And this is when the aliens come back into play. The film repeatedly suggests that intelligence is not measured by technological advancements, but by empathy. Humanity assumes that a superior civilization will possess superior machines. Disclosure Day proposes something different. Perhaps true advancement means understanding other consciousnesses completely. Margaret's gift allows people to experience recognition in its purest form. They are seen, not observed, but understood. It is no coincidence that the characters are often left speechless after encountering her. The film implies that human beings are desperately lonely creatures. We spend our lives attempting to communicate experiences that language can never fully contain, but Margaret briefly bridges that divide. The Wardeck storyline provides a darker reflection of its theme. One of the film's most unsettling questions is why humanity would spend centuries searching for extraterrestrial life only to imprison and exploit it once discovered. The answer may lie in the distinction between wonder and possession. Humans romanticize the unknown from a distance. We imagine aliens as symbols of possibility, yet once the unknown becomes tangible, we seek to control it. Wardex embodies this impulse perfectly. The corporation cannot tolerate the existence of something beyond its authority. Consequently, it transforms revelation into property. Knowledge becomes commodified, and living beings become resources. Our human civilization has repeatedly responded to differences with domination. New lands, new cultures, new peoples, and new discoveries have often been treated as objects to exploit, rather than realities to understand. Wardex's treatment of extraterrestrials reflects this tendency. The corporation's cruelty stems from insecurity. If aliens truly represent a superior intelligence, then humanity is no longer the center of existence. By reducing them to prisoners and experimental subjects, Wardex restores the illusion of human supremacy. The violence therefore becomes psychological before it becomes physical. Humanity seeks not merely to control the aliens, but to preserve its own sense of importance. This culminates in the film's extraordinary final revelation. When the truth is finally released, people across the world stop moving. For a brief moment, history pauses. Not because humanity has been attacked, but because humanity has been confronted with a truth so large that existing narratives can no longer contain it. Governments, religions, corporations, and individuals all experience the same moment of paralysis. The Earth stands still because certainty has arrived. Now, the film leaves open the question of whether disclosure was ultimately the correct decision. I am not convinced that Spielberg wants to answer that question. Instead, he seems more interested in what the question reveals about us. We tend to assume that truth is inherently liberating. Disclosure Day challenges that assumption. Some truth frees us, others destabilize us. Some expand our understanding of reality while simultaneously removing the comforting illusions through which we navigate it. Knowledge always carries a cost. Disclosure Day remains one of Spielberg's most philosophically ambitious films. Beneath the uneven pacing and occasionally distracting visual effects lies a mediation of faith, wonder, memory, loneliness, and humanity's endless search for meaning. It asks whether belief can survive certainty, whether childhood can survive adulthood, and whether human beings truly want answers to the questions they spend their lives asking. Most intriguingly of all, it suggests that the greatest mystery was never extraterrestrial life. The greatest mystery has always been ourselves. Thank you for watching. I hope this sparks some questions about the film or intrigues you to go watch it, because this was a truly enjoyable film to go watch, especially on the big screen, and it makes for a great film to be Spielberg's comeback. I was extremely hyped for this film and it lives up to the hype. So I really hope you enjoyed my weirdish analysis of it, and I hope that if you go watch the film you enjoy that too. Thank you for watching.